that short spurt where you just kind of have to go hard and grind. I feel like people are still doing it every day. I say go for it, but don't make that the whole thing. I definitely have a goal in mind. Don't make that the only way you're sustaining the content itself. That stuff just isn't sustainable. And then once you start doing things for yourself, you see your content get better, like your energy get better on camera because you're less mentally drained.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reactorverse podcast. I'm here today with a good friend of mine, someone I have had the pleasure to meet and work with several times, over the last few years, and someone I actually really admire and respect in this space. One of the sort of, in my opinion, legends of the space with his whole team, with the whole crew, with the whole channel, the Normies. It is Suraj Choudhary. Suraj, thank you for being here.
Right back at you, Eric. Utmost respect for you, man. You're connected with everybody. You are like I would say the Captain America of the Reactor cinematic universe, man.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm glad you invited me. I'm excited to see everybody else's. I haven't seen who all's in your lineup yet, but
yeah, there'll be a few. There'll be a few. But I wanted to get you on as one of the early ones because, again, you are, along with the whole Normies team, like one of the most, like, I think, veteran and tenured channels at this point. You guys have been through the highs and lows, like through different, phases, stages of like yourself and platforms and so on, so on. So you have a lot of insight that I thought is really valuable to kind of pick your brain about and share with the public here.
Sure, it's weird. We've been doing this for 8 years now.
Yeah,
when we started it. Yeah,
almost a decade. Almost coming up on the whole trip around now.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird saying I've done a decade of YouTube stuff.
Yeah. So I want to start from the beginning, the whole thing. First of all, I always start with the channel name, the Normies. Where did that name come from? Who was it? An individual who came up with it? Was it sort of a team effort?
For sure. So 8 years ago, I was still working at my other digital marketing job, and I was seeing reaction channels. I think I actually saw Burlington Bar, Sean Tank Top's channel, and I was seeing his Game of Thrones reactions. And at the time, I would already host premiere parties and finale parties for like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones season 4. So season 5 of Game of Thrones comes along, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this reaction thing. I have no idea what it's going to turn into. I just asked them, hey guys, I'm going to stick a camera right here in the corner. Is that cool? And they were already used to me shoving cameras in their face because I'd been doing video production projects ever since they've known me, essentially. And so it was very easy for them to just kind of be and appear natural on there. And I named the channel Talkin' Thrones because we were just doing Game of Thrones, and I, got that inspiration from Chris Hardwick's Talking Dead after Walking Dead. Right. And so I was like, oh, we'll be Talking Thrones. I think there's actually another Talking Thrones out now. It's stuck with the name. But that was our name for that first stint of episodes we did of season 5 of Game of Thrones. And then, we learned about trolls and comments. Back then you read every single comment because you're looking for the motivation to keep doing what you're doing. Right. And so everything good, everything bad, we would read and we're like, oh man. And one of them was, wow, you guys are really insightful. Too bad you're a bunch of fucking normies. And I didn't know what that meant. None of us had ever heard that term. At the time, I don't think it was as well known as a term. Right. Now you hear Philip DeFranco saying it. It's on like the Wednesday show. I feel like it wasn't in the vernacular as prevalent as it is now. Yeah. And so I looked it up, and it was basically, someone who consumes mainstream media for like its most surface level of messages, I guess, or something like that. Whatever the definition normie is. And I was like, that's us. Why hide that? We are just a group of friends that gets together and does that. And it was a unique name at the time for me, and we just stuck with it. So we took a page from Tyrion Lannister's book, and we wore the insult like armor, like so it can't be used against us.
Yeah, that makes sense.
8 years later,
right? Yeah, I mean, you mentioned you had been inspired by some other channels, like Burlington Bar, so on, so on. When you started that first video, did you think that this was like the start of something, like you were like you wanted to do something with a channel to build into something larger, or was it just like, hey, let's just try this out? I think it'll be fun for one go.
I think it was a lot of trying shit out. I had been on YouTube, just with my own personal channel, doing random I did like a Dragon Ball AMV in 2006.
Nice.
I used to do these vlogs with like our friends when we'd go to parties and stuff, and they've all been privated now because they're awful. But it was my foray into having a YouTube and creating content that at least like my niche group of friends, there was actually a lot of us throughout college and then like high school, college, and a little after, would always look forward to these episodes. So I had some experience in like delivering some content for an audience. And so I figured we would be a fun bunch to watch. I didn't think it would snowball so quickly. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't realize how much you can get the ball rolling with the reaction video. At least back then. I don't know how it's a little oversaturated now, but I don't know how oversaturated it is to the extent where like you can't put out a reaction and get at least a couple hundred views on it. So even just seeing a couple hundred views in that very first video with no word of mouth, never posting it on Facebook or telling my friends about it, just seeing that organic growth from the very first video and the comments, I was like, oh, we'll do this again next week. And then, the snowball effect, it just started growing. And I think towards the end of that Game of Thrones season, I was like, all right, we need to rename the channel and then do other shows and try to make this become a viable thing.
Right.
And throughout those first 6 or 7 weeks of just like coming back every week because people wanted to watch, I could see that there might have been something there.
Yeah. Did you, as you got that early progression, did you explain to the others like, hey, this was happening? This was like, we're starting to get people watching this stuff. Like there's interest here.
Oh yeah. They, I'm so thankful for my friends because they always supported me no matter what I was doing. If I was doing short films, if I was creating documentaries, they would do it for me. So at first they were just doing it to support me. But even that very first video, they were surprised to see kind of like random people commenting. And I think the first video to hit like 1,000 might have been like episode 4 or something. People were very excited, like Navi, Mickey, Nahid at the time, Rana, Pat, all very excited. And I remember them screenshotting. I screenshotted a message that Navi wrote in our group text and was like, whatever, we got 300 subscribers now. Trolls can suck my dick. And I was like, we were very excited for 300 subscribers. Yeah. So even in the early days, I think everyone kind of saw that this was something was going on here.
Right.
I don't think we ever thought it would be all of our full-time jobs eventually, but it was enough for everybody to start donating every Sunday to just like a full normie filming day. So everybody had full-time jobs and everyone would just like, hey, at least one day a week, let's film this shit. I would edit it out throughout the week. And it was a commitment everybody made without any pay for a long time, including myself. We didn't even start our Patreon until much later. We didn't even enable AdSense until much later because we were just trying to build an audience.
Right. So because you started with Game of Thrones, which is like a really sort of obvious catalyst a lot of people started with. Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, those are kind of big shows everyone jumps into because it's easy to get swept up in the sort of culture of it. You get, the discussions and everything. But once that season ended, was there like sort of a scramble or like a pivot to figure out what's next? Like, what are we doing if we want to keep this going?
For sure. We tried True Detective season 2 at the time because that's what was premiering right afterwards. And unfortunately it was a horrible flop compared to the first season.
Right.
We were definitely disheartened by the views. There were still some views, but it wasn't Game of Thrones level. And I knew Walking Dead would be big. I had been watching the show, so I knew that would do well with reactions because I'd seen other people doing those reactions. So For a while there, it was just like Game of Thrones, Walking Dead. Those are the big two.
Right.
Anything we did in between was kind of just like, I think we did like Mr. Robot. It was just like stuff we wanted to watch that we thought would catch on or we thought would be really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely it took a while to find that groove of like, finding the next thing. And to an extent, it's still prevalent now to where we're like, hey, Naruto's ending. That's like one of our biggest Patreon shows. Now we have to find something else to fill in like that big gap.
Yeah.
So it's still a little bit of a mystery as what's going to be the hit thing that people are going to want to see. But I mean, that's what's great about it is it'll end up being something you don't expect to watch or you would never have watched on your own.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
It kind of motivates you.
The foray into anime definitely helped us out. I mean, the first anime we did was Attack on Titan season 2 because we had all watched season 1 on our own. So we're like, we're going to try anime out. And it was like, okay, all right, people love anime. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And then we started venturing into that too.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned that you started sort of in YouTube with anime AMVs, anime music videos. I did the same thing back in the day. Back in high school, I made a lot of AMVs as like my early foray into editing. And that's how I learned how to edit, was just tinkering with that stuff for several years. And then eventually worked my way up to like other things.
What did you use back then? I was on Windows Movie Maker.
I used, at the time that I got into it, I had access to iMovie, like the very early version of iMovie on like the Mac 5 or whatever, like the G5. And so that was like how I first got started. And for you though, I want to like, now that you guys have sort of, the full established team of people that you've been around, you worked together for several years now, I want to go back and ask, like, so how did you all kind of first meet? Like, what's like, I guess you yourself with everyone, but also the other sort of relationships between everyone in the group?
For sure. Probably the first person I knew, well, now it's Spidey. My buddy Spidey, aka Josh, has joined the channel. He's reacting with us. I've known him since kindergarten. But from the start of the channel, Mickey and I were the first to meet. And I was probably in 4th grade. He was in like 5th or 6th grade. And we were just at a party that our parents had dragged us to. And some of the other kids had like walkie-talkies. They were not sharing, so they were just kind of like playing around. And we were just like, all right, we'll hang out with each other. So we hung out outside and we literally just talked about Final Destination 1 the whole time.
And like, how old were you?
I was like 10 or 11. Yeah, maybe 12. Yeah, it was, the first movie was, I don't know if there was tits in that one. There was tits in the second one, but I probably still shouldn't have been watching it. But regardless, we, funnily enough, found common ground on like nerding out about a movie, our very first conversation. Right. And throughout the years, Mickey and I grew closer. Like I worked at his dad's Subway, and like we would goof around, throw parties, and then Naheed came into the picture and Patrick came into the picture, and we would all throw these hotel parties thinking we were so cool. And like we prided ourselves on being like a fun bunch in like the Indian community here, as well as just like trying to have like the time of our lives essentially. And then, they knew I was always into video. So I told you I was doing those vlogs. They're called DAMS episodes because it was our initials spelled out DAMS at the time with all of our friends. Right. And short films. And so me, Mickey, Naheed, and Pat, it was us for a while. And then we all kind of met Nevi at the same time. Mickey and Nevi had started dating then. And Naheed was friends with Rana. And so we met Rana through Naheed. And then we all kind of met Navi just kind of mutually through a party and things like that. And we knew that she was a fellow nerd also. So she was the perfect person to invite. And like she had been to like all the Breaking Bad things that I had thrown and like all the other Game of Thrones things that I had thrown. And so that initial group, we all have kind of known each other for maybe 10, 15 years now. Like Chris and Marquetta. Chris, we met in college. Like I went to basically film school with him. And so I've known Chris longer than anyone else in the group, besides Mickey and Pat. He brought Marquetta to a reaction one day. And then 2 weeks later was like, we're married. We were like, what's happening? But yeah, they're obviously like the cutest, most adorable couple ever.
All right.
And so like Marquetta fit right into the mold as well. He was like, can I bring my girlfriend over? She's a huge Game of Thrones nerd. She was a very good presence to have on the channel. And we all just sort of eclectically fit in together with like our roles, and we weren't trying to each have different distinct personalities, but I think it worked out that we all were so different, but also loved to just kind of nerd out about this shit.
Yeah.
We were all into YouTube and wanting to grow an audience together. So
yeah. I mean, so you mentioned you went to film school with Chris. I mean, was that something, I guess, that helped, with the beginning of this? Like, when you started, it was you with camera, but like once you started sort of rotating people in for this thing on like a more regular basis, like, I guess, was it you and Chris at the forefront of like figuring out like mic situation, cameras, was it sort of a team effort for that?
I think a lot of it was a team effort. I was using just like a 5D Mark II in the beginning that had a 12-minute record limit. So I had to keep getting up to press record again, like press stop and record to keep it going for the whole episode. And it was mostly my equipment from school that like Chris was familiar with, just like a single H4 zoom to capture all of our audio. It was very rudimentary. And I think most of it was on me at the beginning. Eventually people started stepping up to like different roles of like, hey, I'll set up the table, or like, hey, I'll bring the food, or something like that. Just like small things, or like I'll make sure the lighting is good. I did end up relying on Chris way more with like the audio and lighting eventually, and he and Mickey and myself became kind of more of the tech people involved with the behind the scenes stuff, including the editing and all that. So it was me for a while, then Mickey, then Chris. And the three of us kind of piggybacked a large chunk of it. I ended up quitting my job so I could have more time to work on it before the channel was making me money, just because I knew I had to. If this was going to be a thing, I needed to increase the output. So I needed to like bust my ass. And yeah, that grind was tough. I still have nightmares about that grind, but it was worth doing.
Yeah.
Because there's no way I could work like that now. I'm so glad we built it up to a point where we don't have to work like that now.
Right.
But yeah, now Chris is definitely the audio guy. He's the equipment guy.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
And then how much of the team, I guess, eventually learned new skills over time, through the channel, I guess managing gear and equipment and also editing stuff to help out.
Oh yeah. I think everybody learned a lot. First of all, some people didn't even know that episodes had names. They would watch TV. It was that casual for them. And so they picked up on that. They started picking up on like different directors and writers just from the like the consumption standpoint so far. And started picking up on different tropes and things. The more things we watch, different filmmaking techniques. Like, honestly, pretty proud of Rana for always noticing the one shots and the different like dynamic camera angles. And she says it's certainly something she never would have picked up on if it wasn't for the Normies.
Right.
And aside from that, from the production standpoint, everybody now knows how to do everything if they needed to. Testing the mics, focusing the camera, formatting cards, making sure the lighting looks right. And it took a little while to get there. I would say even in like up to the last 2 years, I think now I could safely say everybody knows how to do everything, because you never know if you have to, just in case.
Right.
But everyone picked up on operating that camera pretty quickly, because the way we would shoot skits was very just off the cuff, very much a lot of improvisational energy. So it was like, toss the camera to Nuvi, and she's like, I could do this. And then toss the camera to Marquetta. And everyone kind of picked up their roles pretty quickly. Like everyone was very gung-ho about learning how to do things. No one was ever like too shy to be like, I can't do it or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So everyone wanted to help out in some way, because it was definitely hard in the beginning, and most of it was on me. So everyone wanted to do everything they could to lighten that load a little bit. And so, yeah, I would say they picked up on the camera operating rather quickly.
That's good. Yeah, great. I mean, so once you guys are going, like, was there a specific sort of milestone or like point you can recall where you're like, okay, we're kind of like moving here. Like this is slowly starting to like get like, perpetual momentum with what we're doing, output to input.
Yeah, I got to give a lot of credit to Nuvi because even back in the day, she just took it upon herself to be in that managerial operations manager type of role where she would like put out the schedule for us, like here's what we're watching, and she would kind of like make sure everyone was doing their tasks, whoever had even tiny tasks throughout the week to do. um she definitely helped a lot with kind of creating the structure of a business, like that this could be a business. And I think it wasn't until the season, was it season 7 of Walking Dead? I think probably the season 7 premiere of Walking Dead. Glenn gets the baseball bat with Negan. It was the big episode, and we knew it was going to be big, and so we decided to launch our Patreon on that episode. That was good. Even though I was just getting like 200, I was like maybe 400 a month. We were very excited that we were getting money in. We had turned on AdSense at that point, so I was making still not enough to cover my own rent. But I was making something and it felt good. And on the side, I was still filming weddings and doing other odd jobs to just sustain life.
Right.
And I had to borrow money from my parents a couple times and like felt ashamed of that. But, I had the base. And so I knew I could rely on them sometimes. And there was a few months there where it got rough. But everything changed when Avatar: The Last Airbender arrived on our Patreon. We had the tiers of like, what do you want us to watch? Or we have a React wheel. What should we do? And I'd seen that Blind Wave was doing Avatar to much success, but I didn't know shit about the show. Chris was the only one who had kind of seen it. And when we finally got it landed on the wheel, we started with The Boy in the Iceberg, the very first episode, and it got just an explosive amount of comments of people saying like, you must do this show, you have to do the show. And so I think it became our first sort of like flagship Patreon show, where I could see the numbers just going up. And once you have at least one show that can do that, then you can kind of start adding other things in. But Avatar was definitely when I was like, okay, like this is how we do this. Like we can turn this into a business now. Like we have one for sure thing that people come to watch, and then we attract them with other smaller offerings as well. And they'll eventually, hopefully, turning those into big ones. We don't always want to rely on one single show, but to use that to propel forward, it's good to have that one show that at least can sustain your bare basic essentials of life, essentially. Like I was finally able to pay rent once we started Avatar, and so I owe a lot to that show. We owe a lot to that show. That was the turning point.
Yeah, because like you said, Walking Dead season 7 premiere really was, I think, the one that blew the gates off of like the reaction space for people to jump in and either join it but also discover it. I think it was certainly like a big catalyst for me to discover like the kind of breadth of reaction videos that existed for TV shows and stuff like that. And then Last Airbender too is like one of those kind of evergreen shows that I think anyone who picks it up usually sees like a good return in engagement from the fans, because the fans are always so excited. I mean, it's also, I think, a benefit of the fact that they haven't done much with the IP since then. They did Legend of Korra, but then not much else. So like everyone's kind of like really, really hungry to sort of relive that, and I think the reaction videos help do that vicariously.
I fully believe reaction videos like are one of the sole reasons, probably the sole reason that there's such a resurgence in the show, and that all of this new stuff is happening with the show. Like people's enthusiasm for making their favorite content creators watch it or review it. I think YouTube is largely responsible for Nickelodeon and them being like, okay, I guess this was really good. And then, seeing a whole new generation take hold of it, or people that were kids like me and just didn't watch it, finally seeing what it was about and how appropriate for all ages it is. I think you really see the power of reaction videos there.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember Iman getting like 1 million views in her Walking Dead season 7 premiere also. And a lot of people shot over 1 million just with that alone. It makes me feel it's ammo to fight the haters that say reaction videos are like really lazy content. Anytime the medium itself benefits from reactions, whereas writers and actors are saying like, oh, this is an awesome reaction video. Like the writer of BoJack tweeted like, I love the Normies reaction to the episode I wrote, Free Churro. And definitely when you see something like Avatar like just explode in popularity again, like I definitely think reactions were a big reason for that even happening.
I agree. I can see that totally. But once you had that on the Patreon, like you said, to balance that with new shows, turn it into a sort of a juggling act of like 1 to 2 to 3 to multiple shows that people can like tune into. What were some of the other first steps you made? What are the priorities you had to like turn this into somewhat of a small business that you were supporting yourself and other team members?
Definitely wanted to take the load off of me. So Chris and Mickey were the other two hired as like part-time editors just to like try to balance the load. I think Chris took some Rick and Morty episodes. Mickey started doing Vikings and things like that. And it helped share the load, but it still wasn't quite there. They had their other full-time jobs. I had the benefit of this was all I was doing, but they had full-time jobs. And so as adults, it's hard to find that time to squeeze in to edit videos and things like that.
Right.
I think it really is just that short spurt where you just kind of have to go hard and grind. I feel like people are still doing it every day, which is not sustainable. Like if you're going to go for that straight mentally draining point of exhaustion type of grind, I say go for it, but don't make that the whole thing. I definitely have a goal in mind. Don't make that the only way you're sustaining the content itself.
Right.
So anytime I would go hard, I was like, okay, I'm doing double drops of Avatar every day, and I'm overnight editing Game of Thrones and this and that. It was never like this is what my life is going to be now. It's all with the goal of like, let's push this. Let's like go beyond plus ultra and push and just get this over the edge to where I can chill now. So where now we can take Juneteenth off this Monday, even though it's the Demon Slayer season 2 finale. Right. And that's something like I would have slapped myself in the face for thinking when I first started the channel. I was like, hell no, you got to watch that right when it comes out, stay up all night editing it. And that stuff just isn't sustainable. And then once you start doing things for yourself, you see your content get better, like your energy get better on camera because you're less mentally drained.
Right.
It's all about the people having that vision. The fact that all my friends were there from the very beginning and they saw that vision too, and they helped me before there was any financial benefit at all, just shows that everyone saw what it could be. And so as long as you have people that truly believe in what you're doing also, it makes it easier. And then everyone bringing their skill set, like relying on people's strengths and weaknesses. Like I said, Navi is largely responsible for creating some kind of structure from this. Like I was just like a Energizer Bunny machine, editing shit, filming shit. Navi actually like started doing budgets and started saying like, all right, we're going to allocate this much for like skit props. We're going to allocate this much for salary, or like paying for food. Like start to get to like, once this like tiny stuff, when you build like the foundations of a work culture, like, hey, we're filming all day Sunday, you don't have to worry about paying for your own food. Like
right.
we're gonna, that's the least that can be done. And so even small stuff like that kind of gets people to appreciate it and see like, oh, this could be even better. Like if we keep doing this, the benefits could be even better for us. Right. And so really it's the people, man. You have to have the right people in the right places to be able to pull something like this off, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and that's really the core, I think, of the channel's success, truthfully, is having the roster that you do. And, the luckily having that sort of from the beginning, that's been like, I think the real appeal I think people have found in the show or the channel, which is that you have this sort of like great camaraderie between one another that people can depend on. It's been something that's ingrained in like your sort of feel with the presentation. What steps have you guys taken to sort of maintain that, to maintain like this sort of sense of like, group friendship, not just between yourselves off camera, but on camera as well? Is there anything you suggest for people who are trying to operate channels with multiple personalities?
Yeah, I have for sure. If you were friends going into it, like there's a reason why people, give warnings about going into business with your friends. It's not something I would advise though. Like I love being in business with my friends now, but of course it has its hardships. It's like, especially if I'm technically the CEO, or like with our org structure chart, if people are above anyone else and we all started out as friends, it does create kind of like a weird dynamic. It's like, oh, I'm telling Nahid what to do, or I'm telling Mickey what to do. And tones can be misconstrued. Passive aggression can build up, resentment. And so communication is absolutely key. Making sure we are hanging out outside of work is absolutely key. We, for a while there, we had a whole dollar in the jar scenario where when we were hanging out outside of work, if we mentioned work, we put a dollar in the jar because we had to have a life outside of this.
Right.
Naturally, it always comes up. Like now, like we'll just offhandedly mention it, but we make sure to at least have that time outside of work.
Right.
Like regular jobs, you see those people at your 9 to 5 more than you see your own family.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or your friends. And so when those people are your friends and they are your family, you see them a lot. So one thing that we started doing about a year and a half ago, almost 2 now, was we started going to therapy, like a group therapy, a group counselor. And that has really helped because everyone likes to think you can solve all these situations on your own and just like squash any beefs you have, or just clear the air or ignore it. And like, what I mean? That was a weird interaction, but whatever, it'll go away later.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, and it builds up, and it can show on camera, or maybe it doesn't show on camera, but then it becomes weird. Like you're a certain type of way on camera with people, and then off camera you're not. And we didn't want that. We absolutely never wanted it to be like, okay, we're coworkers now. We don't like to even see each other outside of work. We saw it kind of going that way sometimes with a few of us. And so Chris is the one that actually suggested we do group therapy. I'm very thankful he did. And even though there's a big emphasis on mental health now, I feel like people are still embarrassed to try to do something like that,
right,
or try to like work something out as adults, because it's like, oh, whatever. Like I'm not married to this person. Like I'll get my own soul therapy. Like why should I go to therapy with a group of 7 fucking people? But it was so helpful, and it's to the point now where like we only go once every month or once every couple months now.
Right.
Just like get some things off our chest, and it really has allowed us to clear the air and to just like not resent each other, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't knock it till you try it, I've heard stories of people starting YouTube channels, reaction channels, and then things don't always end up working out, like behind the scenes socially, and it really sucks. Sometimes there's an impasse. Sometimes people have to leave. We know that firsthand as well. But if you are committed to trying to maintain a relationship, you just have to kind of focus on what's important to you. Like, is it more important to you to have a channel that's like working and it's just like strictly business, or is it more important to you to maintain what even allowed it to start to begin with?
Exactly. Right. I mean, that's very important, truthfully, and it's great to emphasize that, because something that I think is highly overlooked in the reaction space, in the YouTube space too, is just mental health, mental well-being, making sure that you're not pushing yourself beyond your limits. And I think physically that's easier to discern when you're feeling exhausted and so on. But like you said, like mentally things build up, like they start to erode over time if you're not like sort of maintaining it. And like you get to a point where like you don't even realize how you got there. And I could see that with like a group dynamic, that being a huge risk, because you don't want to wake up one day and realize like we've passed the point of no return in terms of our relationship between one another, and like we don't really have the means to even go back and sort of fix this.
For sure. And it's important to know like it's not always going to be like flowers and rainbows every day. Like we're allowed to just kind of be annoyed at each other sometimes. We're just like, I don't want to see you guys this weekend. I love you guys. I don't want to see you this weekend. This has been a long week. And right. I think we allow each other those graces and those moments of frustrations now. Like, it's nice.
And it's also, like you said, having your friends be your coworkers, it's tough to parse that out when your quote unquote boss is like the platform and the audience, and those are people who are coming down on you in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
collectively, individually, and then like those things start to seep into how you react around each other, just because like those agitations are there
Yeah.
not between yourselves, but in the atmosphere between yourselves. But one aspect like you have with like the channel going into it is that you guys do a smart thing where with different reactions for shows, films, so on, you usually have someone there who's in the space to who's seen it before, who act as sort of like a guide for the others,
Mm-hmm.
which is really smart because I think that helps with avoiding certain pitfalls of confusion and like questions, stuff like that. Like there, movies might stumble and people are like, wait, what is that? Why is that thing happening like this? And you can like kind of quickly say like, oh, don't worry, it's just because of this. Like, okay, and you could
Yeah.
keep them on track. It's very helpful, truthfully. I think one of the biggest examples of that was you being able to watch Lost again with Nikki and Rona, and like obviously I think everyone in the space knows you're a major Lost head, a Lost expert. It's such a diehard. I think you have a tattoo of it, don't you?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There you
You can
go.
kind of see it. Living is
Yeah,
easy with eyes closed, it says.
yeah. But what does it mean?
Yeah.
But what was that like though for you revisiting Lost? Something that you obviously love extremely well, but doing that again on camera as like a sort of more presentational format, knowing that you had to present yourself, your thoughts in a different manner for the camera, for the audience, and also for Rana and Nikki who are watching it with you to guide them along on the journey.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a mix of I want to tell people how I felt while I watched it the first time. I want to share the experience with like the other Losties. Like my people are out there. There's other Losties out there that love it just as much as I do. And then part of being a shaman, or what we call it, like a shepherd, Jack Shepherd, for like the shows when there's one person on there that is being the shepherd, was learning what to say and what not to say.
Hmm.
And I personally feel like I never quite spoiled, but I did a little bit, but I don't feel like it ever kind of hindered the experience, because like I kind of know my friends and how they digest things.
All right.
Like I would never just straight up say like, oh, and like, you know what I mean, just crazy, like crazy reveals in that. So it was a little bit of a juggling act there, because there are things I wanted to say of stuff that I knew that happened in the show, obviously, but to me it was great because it felt like watching it for the first time. Like that's why people do reactions. It's like sitting right there live next to Nikki and Rona. It did feel like I was watching it for the first time, and like the whole journey of it, I'm so glad we did it just once a week, and it took 2.5 years to finish the show just watching it.
Right.
So it did feel like back then also when it was actually on television. I thoroughly enjoyed rewatching that. um yeah, it's just a lot. It's like I said, an amalgam of sharing in that love with everybody and trying to explain things to Nikki and Rona, and sometimes even putting them in the back seat and in the seat of like the past, of like, here's how we were looking at it, by the way, this had
Right.
just happened, the writer strike was going on, the writers promised this, Michelle Rodriguez got a DUI, things like that.
Yeah, that extra context is really helpful. I think viewing the sort of art behind the art, so to speak, of like
For
how
sure.
that was produced. That's my favorite aspect of like rewatching these things, is seeing the sort of ripples of people's enjoyment of it through what was going on, the production at the time,
Yeah.
and the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I enjoy hearing that too. I always enjoy hearing fun facts and stuff from
Yeah,
like
same.
if,
Yeah,
if Mickey's seen The Office and he's kind of guiding us through that right now.
right.
And, yeah, it's good to hear.
Are there any other shows or films or genres, IPs that you've kind of discovered through the channel that you feel even closely as fond of now, just because you found out, here now doing it for the work?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Avatar: The Last Airbender. That was that hit me at a special time in this whole Normies venture, but also like my personal life. I had done a video essay on it on the Normies channel if you want to check it out for more info, but I was kind of going through a lot at the time,
Mhm.
just mentally, things with family, depression, and it was just weird how what we were watching just kind of informed my life. Like it sounds stupid, but I feel like this happens with a lot of people, right? Like you watch a show and you compare it to your own life. And so when you go on the journey and you end a show, it's like a part of yourself, like a chapter in your life being closed.
Right.
And so you grow from it. Like I am of the I'm the type of person that I don't want to ever watch something and not learn something even about myself in the process. Like I like to put myself in there and take something from it. Like not just watch a show and be like, that was a good show, but to watch a show and be like, man, like how would I react in that situation? Or like, how does this compare to stuff that I'm going on in my life? Or this is kind of like that. I feel like we do that subconsciously, but I just, I guess I just apply meaning to a lot to things that maybe I shouldn't always be applying meaning to. But with Avatar, it was such a like step for me to like embrace the messages in that show at the time I was watching it. And so I think it kind of reflected itself in the reactions. Other shows that are beloved to me now are like Community. Like I rewatch Community a lot. I think it's just a great, fun, like cozy little sitcom. It's like the antithesis of a sitcom.
Yeah.
Of course, you have the Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, but I was already watching that.
Right.
There's been special niche shows like Dark. It's very good. Like stuff that I like highly recommend. There's stuff that we've watched that I've enjoyed, but then there's stuff that we've watched where I'm like, dude, if you like time travel, you have to see Dark. You have to watch that show. And then like there's things like Over the Garden Wall, which is a great like something I'd recommend for Halloween. Everything we've watched has kind of, I don't know, helped me learn a little bit about myself even. There's a Norwegian show called Skam, which I would say it's something I never would have watched on my own, but I highly recommend. But to put it on the pedestal of like Lost and Avatar: The Last Airbender, I would say, gosh, The Wire was really good.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things where I'm like, that was a great show. The Good Place was very good also.
Yeah.
There are things with like the beginning and end that like they just hit different. And BoJack Horseman. BoJack Horseman is like very, very much highly recommended.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, BoJack is one of the ones people recommend. Is like, oh, if you want to feel something, you want to learn something about yourself, like that's the one to sit down and watch. Yeah,
it's like drinking a tall glass of whiskey, like embracing depression for a little bit, but it's like it's still a really good show.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you guys have such a high rotation of stuff on a weekly, daily basis of what you're, putting out and like figuring out how to make a selection of people to watch. I want to ask what goes into the curation of those things, like, not just the wheel itself, and you have the reaction wheel of what's going to come up next, but like what goes into the curation of like what do we even put on the wheel, like what is considered coming up next, what's the criteria you guys have to consider for that?
We keep a running list of like the frequent recommendations we get in the comments. Like normally we ignore it, but when we see it twice, it's like, all right. When we see it like 10, 12 times, like, all right, this needs to be watched. Squid Game, I guess, needs to absolutely be watched because everyone and their mother's talking about it. But for just other recs, like, like over the years, Buffy, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or like, I don't know, Gravity Falls. There's things that we hear, and then there's stuff that we're also interested in. So we normally put it up for a Patreon poll because Patreon is like, they're our first and foremost we try to cater to. But we'll also do some YouTube polls. Like we'll have a Patreon poll for a show, and we'll also have a YouTube poll for a show. YouTube being sole purpose for growth in subscribers, Patreon being for actual financial growth.
All right.
But we poll people, put an amalgam of things that we've heard referenced and recommended, plus things that like we really want to watch. And then we'll throw that up as like the top 3 or the top 4 on a wheel to spin it. Because I like to think it gives hope to the people that like their show didn't get number 1 voted. Right. It might be a while before it does. So at least if it's in the top 4 or 5, you have like a chance of it landing on the wheel. But then sometimes we just go with whatever the poll says. And sometimes we just watch something because we really want to watch it.
Yeah. Like
The Wire. And most recently, it hasn't even come out yet, but Boondocks. We're just really interested in doing Boondocks reactions. So Lost was one of them. Like Lost was like, didn't win a poll. I'm like, fuck this. I'm doing this. We're going to Nikki's house and we're watching Lost. So yeah, so we don't ever want to exceed a certain amount of shows though. Like we look at what our competitors do. We also look at what we can manage. And like right now it's about 14, 15 shows, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Thankfully I'm on a lot of them myself, but thankfully we're not all on every single one because that's too many stories to keep straight. And too many Japanese character names to keep straight.
Did anyone else sort of make executive decisions on that? Like, I really want to watch this show. Like, I'm calling in my card here to.
Oh yeah,
watch this
every
one.
time. But yeah, Mickey with The Office. I think back then Chris really wanted to watch Avatar with us, but we weren't at a place where everyone was working, and it was just easier for us to have like Nahid, Rana, and Mickey be the crew with me on that because we were just free most of the time. They would stay over on weekends driving from Chicago, so we just binge at like as late as like midnight sometimes.
Right.
And I know he really wanted to join that one. Let's see, it's hard to think of it now. Attack on Titan. I really wanted to be on that one. That's another show that's up there for me, by the way.
Yeah.
As far as like
same
in the pantheon of things, that's probably like the best television out there.
I agree. I mentioned it in another interview. Is that it became, I think, my favorite anime. It surpassed Naruto as my favorite anime. And I think it's up there with just one of my favorite shows ever.
100%. Like the haters are gonna say it's overrated, but they don't know what to talk about. If a piece of media can capture many different people from many different walks of life, it's a success.
Yeah.
Even if the like Game of Thrones, even if the ending was shit for Game of Thrones, that show brought jocks, nerds, women, people that anyone that was not into the fantasy genre was watching Game of Thrones. So
yeah,
the story propelled it. But yeah, people have definitely called in their cards before. Like we want to do Succession on the channel, and Mickey's like, "Fuck you! I don't give a fuck. I am on that show. If you guys are watching Succession, I have to watch it." Yeah, and Chris with The Wire.
yeah. I could definitely see that. I again, like there's shows that you love and you don't know how well they'll fit into the sort of algorithmic schedule of things to make sure that they're performing well. But you're like, I gotta have this experience. I gotta feel this again with some people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many stuff we want to watch, but we're like, but will it do well with the views? I don't know. But do we care? People just like to see us having fun too. So we allow at least one or two slots of just like, we don't care if this does well in views. We're gonna have fun, and hopefully that comes off on camera.
And you need that sort of outlet, to have for yourself, so you're not just like driven by the dictation of what's going to do well.
For sure.
But for yourself, for off camera though, similarly, do you guys have shows or movies that you're like, I need this for myself? Like I don't want to turn this into like something that I need to be on for, especially for those who have significant others, like to be able to share that experience privately, with one another.
That's the hardest part because we want to save ourselves from like the movie theater experience so we can react to it on the stream. But then the movie theater experience is so good, like what did I watch recently in theaters with Corey? We went to the IMAX. Oh no, me, Mickey, Chris, Dameron, Spidey, Pat, we all went to the IMAX showing of John Wick 4. It's like, I was like, no, like we got to see this in theaters. I'm sorry. Luckily, the girls were already doing a React series, but it does get hard. We'll kind of like shame each other sometimes. I'm like, Chris, why'd you go see Spider-Verse, man? Like we thought we were gonna wait for the reaction, but it's as long as there's like 4 of us that haven't seen it, we'd say it's okay. So we do kind of check in sometimes, like into like Across the Spider-Verse. Like I really want to see that with Corey. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm gonna just take myself out of that reaction or just rewatch it again if we do the reaction.
Yeah,
but it is always a tough thing as a reactor, even just finding things on TV to watch. Like
right.
Where I'm like, should I watch this or are we gonna do it for the channel? I don't know.
Yeah.
It can be tough for sure.
Yeah, maybe you guys should start drawing straws or something to be like, who gets to
like
who's the lucky ones.
That would be more fair.
Go see like go get to see in theaters. Yeah,
exactly. Like I think I had heard about Dune being just amazing in theaters, so I just immediately was like, hey guys, I'm gonna see this. Sorry, like I'm going to watch it in theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good call. I saw Dune in IMAX, and I think that really, really impacted my immersion in it and my enjoyment
Oh
level
yeah.
of how much I cared about that first film. Um,
100% same.
yeah. But then similarly, when you guys have the ability to sit down and like sort of step over the theater experience and you're on the couch for the first time, do you do any research on like how it went, like what was the sort of like review impact, cultural reception of it, or do you really go in like completely blind?
It's truly blind besides what we just kind of hear from YouTubers we follow or like friends we know. So we don't do research as in like what's like the Reddit consensus on this or what's the consensus on this, but like we do end up kind of hearing about it sometimes.
Mm.
And sometimes we choose to share or not to share. Like I there's no way I could be a citizen of the internet and not know that people were lukewarm on Ant-Man 3. And like
Right.
I haven't seen it yet. And like we're gonna react to it once it's on streaming. Is I don't it might be on streaming by now. I don't know actually.
Actually, I
But
don't even
we're gonna react
yeah.
to that eventually. And I already know that there like it was kind of lukewarm received. So it's stuff like that is unavoidable and it does kind of taint the experience, but to be honest, watching reactions with a group of friends on the couch, we're always going to have a good time. That's why a lot of the times when we watch something and I'm like, that was fun. Like, I don't know why people hated that. But then, like, I'll watch it with Corey or watch it on my own and be like, oh, this isn't as fun. Like, I don't know. Maybe it was fun because Chris cracked a funny one liner or
Yeah.
Marquetta yelled at Pat for something wild Pat said.
Yeah.
But, like, it's like the memory and the experience of watching it with friends versus, like, watching this in a theater and be like, well, that was shitty.
Yeah.
Like, every shitty movie is made better when you're laughing with others
Yeah.
about it.
I agree. Yeah, that is a big factor.
Yeah.
Um, and then now that you guys are here, you've sort of established yourself again, like I said, as one of the tenured channels of the community. In my opinion, you and Blind Wave, I think, are the two sort of like epitomes of like team based channels, like in balancing that whole aspect. And you've both broken ground in terms of like crossovers and like going out and like doing new things, and also like
So fun.
conventions like Normies Con, Wave Con,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Are there any sort of other like big milestones that you guys are looking to achieve in the near future, like that are significantly larger than what you've done before?
Other than more collaborations and conventions, it's the original content is always something like both Blind Wave and ourselves have expressed interest in. They do amazing lightsaber choreography and the Star Wars fan films, and I think we're all sort of filmmakers at heart and would love to have the time and resources to be able to do more of that. Um, right now, we are working to produce a narrative kind of radio podcast show like
Nice.
back in the day. So like an episodic narrative, I guess kind of like an Audible experience, but it'd be on
Hmm.
Spotify and
Right.
we'd be able to flex our voice acting prowess there. And something I've always been interested in was doing voice acting and others on the channel as well. So we're very excited to start that project up and hopefully, have that be a thing that we do regularly or some kind of heavy narrative piece or heavy narrative content. I feel like we've always been saying that, but it's important to always have at least one of those projects lined up for us so we
Right.
just kind of feel more creatively fulfilled. Like
Hmm.
we've gotten down to the nitty gritty as a company. It's like, oh, we have a vision and we have our core values now. And one of our four core values is creativity. And that goes for like all of our managers, editors, and like partners. And we want to be able to scratch that creative itch for all of us.
Right.
So right now, that's kind of the big thing is to create this radio show for us. But after that, beyond that, we're kind of working to establish our personal brands now as well and be invited to more events. Like when we were invited out to LA, we really enjoyed that experience and just networking with different content creators, Twitch streamers, cosplayers, and the like. So the more stuff we can do at events in person, I think is going to continue to be the goal for us.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And one of my kind of final questions here is, now that you've been in this so long, like we said, you've kind of been doing this for almost a decade now. You've seen the changes, the shifts throughout the years. What are some of the obstacles that you've faced over the years that are still sort of like, prevalent today that you kind of like that either they've alleviated or like you have managed to work around and learn from, but like there's still sort of things you, as even like a established channel, you still have to kind of consider on a day-to-day, monthly, yearly basis?
Oh yeah. Well, you never know when YouTube or Patreon will just pull the rug out from under you, right? Like they'll one person who's abusing the copyright system can just kind of start flagging multiple videos, and then Patreon has to act, and they just say like, "Hey, your account's going to be suspended. We're going to pull all these posts." And things like that will always be like an imminent danger. I think all content creators kind of just have to face that fact of like, hey, for any reason, YouTube can do some stupid guideline and some shit and change everything.
Right.
But the whole reaction landscape itself in the beginning was something I was very concerned with. I'm like, how long will this last? Is this a fad? Is this something that's going to go away? To an extent, I do still worry about it, but I feel like it has become a more recognized genre, like a subgenre of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more people are doing it now than they were 10 years ago, like celebrities now. Like Dr. Mike doing his thing, like
Right.
Real Lawyer reacts to lawyer scenes and things like that. So it's like that specific niche, I don't think is going away anymore. I also always worried about us growing out, like growing past our audience, like outgrowing them. However, we're still here, and I'm 33 years old. People still think I'm in my 20s. And we started this when we were in our 20s.
Right.
And, those people who were with us back then, who are still with us, they grew up with us. So I don't think we would ever outgrow so much as like we might get more out of touch with like Gen Z. Gen Z, we're able to keep up with them little Gen Z shits right now, but the generation after Gen Z, I don't know about that one. We'll have to see. So that's still like a worry in my book, I think. And then at any point in time, DMCA laws could change as far as like how you have to show clips or like the internet and the regulations and all that. We could always just have the rug pulled from under us and not be able to show any clips, for any shows or whatever. So that could also change, and we just kind of have to stay ready for that.
Yeah.
Recessions, inflation, things like that. We saw a hit on our Patreon tail end of last year for like one of our first times, and we're like, okay, like, interesting. And it's finally starting to affect, people's wallets, the things that are going on in this country, and just like the stock market, inflation, recession, all that stuff. It's stuff you have to just kind of pay attention to. TV shows, I think we were in a golden era of TV. I think we are actually, if we're not phasing out, I think we have phased out of that golden era, because you used to have very big tentpole shows like Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, and now you just have so many options that so few kind of stand out from the mold. And even when they do, it is only still like a niche audience that likes that, not the gigantic masses that like come to Attack on Titan. So that worries me in the future, that we'll just continue to be oversaturated with shows, and there won't be any more excellent shows. They'll just be like kind of good shows. And that, unfortunately, it doesn't really bode well for our type of reaction community.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's something that I had been sort of anticipating for almost like the better part of a decade now, because when, like you said, when the golden era of TV came in and there were all these shows being sort of cropped up with Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad, and the wave after that of shows like tried to emulate that success by being super prestige high-end TV shows. It reminded me a lot of comic books, the comic book era back in the day, that with DC Comics that had like, hundreds of different imprints that were going on that eventually led to their crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was like their culling, their idea of like, there's too many of these things that it's not sustainable. People aren't giving each one enough time for them to grow and flourish. So we need to like cull this and like just whittle it down to like just the core, 10 or so IPs and turn it into like Earth One. That's when they had like all their things combined. And I don't know how that would affect TV, but like it felt like a similar pattern where eventually there was just like this super big landscape people, got to where they're like, oh, I hear that show is really good, but I'm gonna wait until it does maybe gets its first season done, then I'll see, how if I'll jump into it. And because of that, it doesn't get the ratings that it's needed to sustain, so it won't get past that first season, and so on, so on.
Yeah.
So the cycle
Yeah.
continues.
No,
And
that's a great analogy. I
yeah,
would love a culling of the streaming shows. Like there, I remember when Netflix first came out, it was like the Orange is the New Black, House of Cards, and every show that came out on Netflix was like, there's a new Netflix show. Like,
all right,
holy shit. And it was like a thing to look forward to, very well produced. And now it's just, they're just, it's the famous thing. Netflix just greenlights everything. All the streaming services just pumping out shows. And it's like, I don't know what to watch. It's no longer like it no longer feels like an event when a TV show comes out. They're just sort of just there now.
yeah.
And a culling would be excellent,
They might do that to
tighten
themselves,
it.
with some of these platforms in general. That some of these platforms might not make it out past the next year.
Exactly. Yeah, honestly. And like what you were saying, this why dedicate even time to watch a show if you're so used to Netflix pulling the plug on like canceling things like the 1899 show, or I think what it was called. It was by the creators of Dark.
All right.
I was going to watch it, but I'm like, like I don't know. Netflix has been canceling shit recently, and then they canceled it. There was a show that had a 3-season plan, and they canceled it after the first season. So no one is even going to try to watch anything new. If this is gonna be like, why should I devote my time to this? I think I was watching a YouTuber. His name is Captain Midnight, and he did a really good little commentary on this. It's like, why would anyone devote their time to watch a new show if there's no guarantee or no like commitment that they're going to actually keep making seasons? Like this is the new problem now.
Yeah. Especially when there's just, like you said, so many options of things that you can, keep in like the established shows that you feel a little more comfortable with to keep going. And then, to wrap up here, one of my few final questions is, I guess, how have you individually or you collectively have grown, with the channel over the last several years? Like, from A to B, like how do you feel you as a person or a group have, sort of changed?
I feel like I have become a better leader in that regard, as far as leading by example. I feel like I've been able to get my emotions more in check, been able to articulate myself better, and ultimately be more knowledgeable and confident when it comes to like talking about the things that I see on film. Even just doing live streams, I feel far more confident just riffing on a live stream than I used to. I think it used to make me a lot more nervous.
Right.
And just being able to talk to people in general, I think, you have the tendency to feel a little introverted when you do YouTube or you're a podcaster and things like that. But thankfully, we have a whole panel of people I can interact with that it helps me feel more confident, even just in like social outings, how to like present myself. It's definitely made me confident in my ability to like do this kind of genre for a living, or this like the entertainment industry for a living. I think before when I was doing weddings and things like that, it was such an energy suck. But now, like, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else but YouTube or but something in this space. So even if everything goes tits up for whatever reason, or like I want to move on to other projects, like I have full confidence in my ability to kind of take this energy that I have anywhere and be able to make something out of it. I don't think I had that before.
Right. That's great. It's great takeaway. And my last question in this whole thing is, I always remind everyone, the best and first foremost consideration you should have for this channel, for your own endeavor, is to make sure it's a personal outlet, to make sure that you feel creatively, fulfilled, emotionally fulfilled by it, beyond just making a business. And so for you, and I guess if you could speak towards the team too as well, just what is the most rewarding aspect of the channel for you beyond financial or monetary value?
This will probably be the most popular answer, but it's also our vision statement of the company. And it's like basically to make no one feel alone in this world. And whenever we get those comments or those letters in our boxings of people saying they've been through a hard time and that we've helped them through that, it is probably the best thing. And it helps us realize we are way more important than what we think we are. We're greater than the sum of our parts. That like what we're doing carries more meaning than we could ever even understand sometimes. Obviously, sometimes it's just making dick jokes on a reaction or just goofing off. But sometimes people need that sort of parasocial connection, and it helps them through. It certainly helped me watching some YouTube videos. Like sometimes this is like a nice little blanket to curl up to, like after a hard day, like I'm going to watch my favorite YouTubers, or like it's just a good, therapy to offer the world in a way. Yeah, I guess that about sums it up. Creating a good environment for our company too. Like all the people that work for us, I want to make sure they have happy, fulfilling lives. Our lead editor, Chelsea, she's a mom and she homeschools her child, and she's thankful every day that she gets to do this job where she can stay at home and like watch her child grow up and not have to go into work. And that like really touches me, that like, hey, look, we're also helping a mother be connected with her kid in a way that like most people probably wish they could do with their child. And so it's important for us to, like, with as many people as we have and as many headaches as we get, is like, look at our overhead, look at how much we're paying for salary every month. But we have a team of about 15, 16 people with editors, managers, ourselves, reactors. And it's important to me that they all have 401ks. They all have health insurance. Right. They all have like a free, like we give them free meal, lunch meal, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And things to make their lives easier in a somewhat unstable world we live in. And even if it comes at the cost of us, like, making huge profits, I think it's more important for us to grow as a company and like as a family together.
That's fantastic. That's very, very beautiful mission statement for that. That is about it. I want to close this out as we always do with our final questionnaire, inspired by the Inside the Actor Studio Proust questionnaire. Just 10 straight questions down the barrel.
Let's do it.
So for question number 1, what is your favorite TV show?
Lost.
I think we knew that one. What is your favorite film?
Oh man. I always get this one. This is such a easy question you always hear, but it's the hardest to answer.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm gonna be basic. The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. Okay. That's a good answer. It's a good answer. Yeah. What stresses you out?
Deadlines.
Yeah. I can feel that. Definitely. What helps you relax?
Being with my dog.
That's a great answer. What medium outside of film and TV do you enjoy the most?
I do do podcasts count?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Podcasts and Audible.
Yeah. Do you find time to listen to them often?
Often, most of the time it's YouTubers that I follow that I just kind of listen
that
to.
Makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, I don't have like a regular routine of it. But, whenever I can read a book, of course, reading a book is great. Mostly self-help, actually.
Yeah, that's great. What is your guilty pleasure of anything? TV, film, food, music, anything?
Food. I love me some ramen. I love just eating chocolate. Chocolate is a huge thing for me. And just food. I'm a big foodie. I'm very skinny, but I can put a lot of it away.
What profession besides reacting do you think you'd ever consider trying? Or do you wish you could try?
Psychiatry or psychology.
Yeah.
Being like a psychologist. Yeah. I'm interested and how people perceive things and how their brains work.
That makes a lot of sense. What has your favorite reaction experience been with the channel?
Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it nothing else. I mean, I do have to say why. There's nothing else like it now. Now it's a 9 to 5, and that's great. But back then, it was still in that little bottle experience of us growing the channel, and we did it at like 10 p.m. at night after getting high, drinking, and it was just like the most relaxed, chill way to watch, and it felt very much organic.
Yeah, nostalgic in a way.
Yeah.
What film or TV show do you wish you could erase from your memory and watch again for the first time on the channel?
I guess it'd have to be Lost.
Lost? Yeah, you want one more time?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd have
That's
to
okay.
choose something else. Attack on Titan.
Yeah,
very predictable. I know.
That's also a good answer though.
Yeah.
The highs and lows of that, very, very good. A final question: what advice would you give to your past self if you could go back in time when you first started the channel?
Ooh. Take care of yourself. It's going to be okay. Look after yourself first and foremost. Money is just a thing. It comes and goes, and you'll be all right.
Yeah. Good message to leave everyone with, truthfully, for this one. Suraj, thank you so much for joining us today, man. Again, it was a pleasure to be able to sit down and talk to you about all this. I've been wanting to for years, literally, since I've been
awesome,
dreaming
man.
about this thing. So it's
no, thank you. It took a while to get. We had a little schedule snafu. We got it going.
Yeah.
Even with this, my internet was fucking up, and then it kind of came through. So thanks for being patient with me, and it's an honor to be involved in something like this, and to even like you gassing me up. You're making me feel like I'm more important than I am. But I'm glad I could help out. We could have this chat. Yeah.
Of course. Again, thank you everyone for listening. If you're watching this, on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to this, find this through the newsletter, please share, spread the good word. We appreciate it. And you'll find us on the next one. Have a good one.